Who's on the hotter seat right now in New York? Is it Gase or Shurmur?
It's probably Gase, but it should be Shurmur. And there's a very simple reason for this. Saquon Barkley is not going to bench himself. Saquon Barkley's not going to make excuses. He's always going to want to play. He has that kind of franchise quarterback personality. It's one of the many reasons he's the greatest running back prospect who ever lived, just based on the evidence. Bigger, stronger, faster, more elusive, has that kind of personality, that whole thing, right? He has to be saved from himself, like a fighter who wants to go back out and around. He's taking a beating. The cornerman has to say, nope, live to fight another day. And instead of that, Pat Shurmur, maybe he's nervous for his job, wants to play Saquon Barkley. It reminds me of KD, but that KD sacrificed the rest of his prime on the altar of pursuing a championship in the finals, where he made the difference. You could see. You're going to risk Saquon Barkley on the altar of not being a 2-8 team, of being a 3-8 team, or to have 4 wins instead of 3 wins at the end of the season. It's not, look, I understand affecting Sam Darnold's confidence is important, but he could get that back. He's very, very, very young. Saquon Barkley is you cannot risk that kind of treasure on the altar of some head coach, coaching for his job on a 2-8 team. To me, that should be the hotter seat.
You are so wrong. It doesn't even come close to being right. And I'm going to tell you why. When you look at the New York Jets, we'll shove aside the fact that they have the third worst offense, the second worst running attack, the absolute worst passing attack in the NFL, with a coach as their head coach who's supposed to have an offensive background. We'll ignore all of that for a second, Max Kellerman. And you know what we'll go to? We'll go to who was the guy that came in as a head coach and then 4 months later assisted in getting the GM fired. That would happen to be Adam Gase. Now, to his credit, he did deny it. Let's make sure we are fair here. He said he had nothing to do with it, that Christopher Johnson, the CEO for the team, made a decision. It had nothing to do with him. But 4 months into being hired, 4 months, no preseason games, no training camps, nothing. 4 months after getting hired for a job you never deserved, the GM who brings you in is gone and you stay. Not only do you stay, you're elevated to the interim GM spot. Not only are you elevated to the interim GM spot, you picked the damn new GM. It's you. It's your team. These are the people you picked. So I don't want to hear anything about Pat Shurmur. Yeah, he need to be gone. There's no question. But when we look at the New York Giants, what have we lamented? Mara, Tish, that what's happened to the Giants, blaming everybody from former GMs to Tom Coughlin, to the Pat Riley wannabe himself with the chubby Pat Riley, Ben McAdoo. We blamed everybody. But we know that with the New York Giants, there was fault all over the place. With the New York Jets, Adam Gase, who never coached a game yet, all right, ultimately ends up surviving, getting the GM out, gets elevated to interim GM, picks his GM. This is your team.
Yeah, so
this is your team. There's no question it's Adam Gase.
Gase is in his first year at coach, and I understand all that. I agree that maybe he did not deserve this job, but whatever they saw in him and decided to give him his job, it hasn't been enough time to disprove it. And your point about the GM being pushed out, it's in part because he was not putting the type of players on the team that Gase wanted. Gase and Joe Douglas, the current GM, haven't even had an offseason together yet. I feel like it's impossible to fairly evaluate Gase up until this point. His starting quarterback had mono for much of the season. They've had a ton of injuries. It's hard to argue that he's had a fair shake to evaluate whether he's a good coach or not. Maybe you think that he wasn't a good coach to start, but whatever they saw, whatever the Johnsons saw in him, it's still there, and it hasn't been disproven yet. And the Pat Shurmur point, they are further along in this process. They've had 2 disappointing seasons based on their expectations alone. We all thought that they should have packed it in, but whoever's making the decisions there thought that they should have won last year. They should have been in the playoffs last year, and then again thought they there. He should have been in playoff contention this year, and that is falling short. So to your point about Saquon, I disagree with you there. Maybe this is a whole nother debate. I love that you're very analytical, Max, and I appreciate that, but sometimes analytics need to be put aside. And I think that the analysis that you're coming up with is like it's cold and it's hard and it makes sense as far as sitting Saquon out. But you have to build a team and build a culture around a team. And when you start setting the precedent that this guy, we're going to sit him out, that's a hard thing to bounce back
I agree
from.
with
when
you.
You set that precedent
Dominique,
and you start, like, that's why I hate tanking. Because
I agree with you.
You are sending a message to your team that your efforts don't matter, and only certain people get that appreciation.
Let me just give you another piece of information. You would be right if they just were bad. I would agree. You have to build the culture. I believe he's hurt. Worse than they're letting on. Mm-hmm. And I should have told you that we talked about this yesterday. 13 carries, 1 yard, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I don't care what planet you're on, what defense does, what your offensive line is. That only happens in any dimension, in any universe, if he's hurt. Saquon Barkley ain't going to carry the ball 13 times and pick up 1 yard if he's not hurt. That's what I'm scared of. And by the way, Stephen A., in terms of the hot seat, the reason I think there's urgency because of that fact with the Giants. The Jets are not just like a laughing stock. They're a laughing bond. Like they throw out, there's an annuity every year. They're throwing off that interest every year. They're a laughing bond. You hold it forever. I mean, like, they're always a joke. And there's not like a player who's about to get ruined on that team by Adam Gase. There's a career that I believe is in jeopardy right now.
No. I can soak that up, Max. That's a very valid point on your part in terms of, the level of urgency because of the talent you have. I guess what I'm saying is that when you look at Shurmur, even though neither of them deserve the job, in my estimation, he's just the coach. There are things above Pat Shurmur that are incredibly problematic. I can attach every damn problem with the New York Jets right now to Adam Gase.
Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.